Hey, what's up, everybody? Great to see you as always. We're ready to talk about the soccer as we do here. So hit like, hit subscribe, turn on your notifications, and let's get after it. Hi, hello, and welcome to your favorite Average Good podcast. Call it what you want. I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside Charlie Davies, and no big tones today. He needs to relax. This watch alongs take a lot out of him, Chuck.
They do. They do.
He needs to lay down for a couple days.
He's drained.
We're excited to have him back on the show at some point. Now, let's talk about a pretty big game. I have the fallout, Chuck. So we beat Paraguay 2-1. We got Uruguay coming up next tomorrow. We'll have a watch along for that. So make sure you keep it here on the Gloss America YouTube channel. If you're listening, head over to the Gloss America YouTube channel. Come hang out with us tomorrow. And we got some news. We got Gio Reyna. We got a brawl to talk about. Actually, I want to also, during the show, we want to talk about how the other hosts of the World Cup are doing in Mexico and Canada. So we'll give a little update on that. But let's initially start with your thoughts now that you've been able to sit with this performance for an extra 24 hours, 36 hours, Chuck. How are you still feeling good, feeling positive? That you shouldn't feel anything other than that.
Yeah, I'm feeling very positive about the U.S. men's national team at the moment. Think about the run of games that they've had. Japan was definitely a step in the right direction. But this one, a Paraguay side that we knew was going to be compact, tough to break down, resilient, play with the edge, that you had to meet the expectations coming into the game. But also, let's see the passing. Let's see us dictating tempo, which we did. There wasn't a part of the game where I felt nervous. Not one moment in the game. It was more, are we going to create in the final third? Because when we went from Matt Fries to the attacking third, everything looked pretty fluid. And then in the attacking third, it was, we're missing that pass, or we're not making that pass, or we're not taking that shot. But ultimately, I think what I really wanted to see was Gio Reyna and how he would either sink or swim given this opportunity. And my man swam. And then Balogun still continuing to make an impact and kind of continue to push away Ricardo Pepi and Haji Wright and everyone else.
No, I like that. Gio Reyna took off the floaties and just jumped in, baby, and swam. He swam. Michael Phelps it out there. Okay, so one of the things that I like to do when I'm thinking about a game, maybe a day or two later, is to go through the four areas of development, let's say. So there's physical, tactical, technical, mental, emotional. So Chuck,
okay, let's go, Coach Jim.
Let's do it. So physically, I thought we were up for it. I really want to give us our flowers again, because we talked about it in the post-game show. We talked about it during the watch-along, that our counter press was great. We were up for it, never gave Paraguay some time to breathe, and the one time that we did, they ended up getting a goal. So obviously room for improvement, but ultimately I just thought the consistency of our aggression and our pressure was excellent, and probably the most consistent I've seen throughout Mauricio Pochettino's time in charge. Are you in agreement with that?
Agree.
Okay, great.
Agree.
So then tactically, we went and continued to use our formation, a back three that's more of a fluid four at times, can drop into a back five if necessary. We continue to look strong within this formation. So
flexibility is key here.
Super key. And the comfortability. Here's the main thing you can take away from this, if you go back and watch the game, or if you've watched it already, was the rotations. All of a sudden we see Joe Scally up above Serginho Dest. You'd see Max Arfsten sometimes floating centrally. I mean, there was just, and nobody looked out of place. Everybody's like, yeah, this is, as long as our spacing's okay, we're going to be fine. And
Scally looked a little bit out of place.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
But the rest of the players didn't. If he bombed forward, I guess is kind of more of that. But so I thought tactically, now to your point, we could have been a little bit better in the attacking third in terms of bringing attacks to completion, as they say. But overall, I was happy with the tactics and the continued evolution and confidence in this formation that we're playing, and clearly the understanding and the execution of how the players are performing. So good on that. Technically, again, yeah, you can get into maybe a couple moments where we could be a little cleaner, right, to bring an attack to completion. But overall, I thought we were going up against.
No, we were clean. I mean, think about some of the passing displays that we showed from, whether it was Matt Fries or Ream or Robinson on the ball, building out of the back, not afraid to play. Although it's not that you felt Paraguay pressed all that much, but in those times what they did, we were able to find somebody between the lines and then get out, which for me, it was like, okay, we are starting to see some signs of some ideas on how we break down plays. It's not predictable as well. So for me, I was really pumped about that.
Yeah, no, it's a great shout. Which leaves us with mental emotional. Maybe this should have fallen into tactical, but I really liked how we managed the game. Right? We found a way, made some subs. The subs came on and changed the game. They came in with some good energy and that pressure. I think about Diego Luna. He's the one that started that press that led to the second goal. So I liked all of that. And then when we got into the brawl, yeah, okay, it's not necessarily the best look per se, but I like that we stood up for each other and there was no hesitation. You know, sometimes a brawl kind of starts and you're like, oh, all right, it's just this one guy that kind of gets into it all the time. But man, we were in there right away. Freeman got mixed up with someone and there was like 10 other dudes that were in there that were ready to go. And so I loved the instantaneous response to like, we're not taking any shit from anybody.
No matter who it is. We got everyone's back. You know, normally you see this. Hey, Jimmy, we're about to mess this guy up. We're about to mess this guy up. I'm telling you right now. But it was, let's get it on. You know, I'm going to back up a young player, and Alex Freeman. You know, it didn't have to be just Christian Pulisic that everyone has to go and protect. It's, hey, we're sticking up for our squad. So, and do it in a respectful way where you're not defending them and then everybody's getting red cards, you know? So I really like what I saw from the group. Like this is a team that is moving towards next summer with the right mindset and mentality. You need to have that at the bare minimum before, you know, we're talking about competing in a World Cup.
Yeah, then we think about just kind of overall, it seems like our identity is starting to become a little bit more ironclad and like, okay, this is how we're going to play. This is how we're going to pressure the ball. And yeah, so I guess when I think about identity wrapped into those 4 areas of development, we passed. I give it a nice check mark on every single one of those. Excellent. And that's only going to help further our identity. Is probably the best way to say it. And that's starting to become a little bit more clear under Mauricio Pochettino. So I can't wait to see how they perform against Uruguay. We'll get into a preview of that game, but I do want to back up and talk about Gio Reyna once again. And because Mauricio Pochettino said this, and I wanted to get into it, Chuck, he said with regard to Gio, he showed why he started and confirmed that he's a player that needs to improve because he needs to play more in his club. But we can see today that he was great. His capacity to read the game and find the free space in between the lines, that was a nightmare for Paraguay. And yeah, nice praise. Good praise from that. Again, and I'll say this because I know there's some heat, and I appreciate everybody. And Tony said this during the watch along and asked me this question about do I think Gio Reyna is going to make the World Cup team? And Tony asked me this because I had said I put my flag in the ground that I didn't.
Said he's not. Don't change it now. Don't change it now.
Listen. Now I had said, and here's a question here from 450 Steeler. What does Jimmy say about Gio now?
Woo!
What I say? No, listen.
All right, they're coming for you though.
Okay, that's fine. I don't want to. This doesn't need to be an emotional response for me. There's no reason for me to get defensive, because.
But you are.
I'm not getting defensive. What I'm saying is, one, I've never questioned Gio's talent. Never questioned that. So I don't want to get into an emotional battle with that's one. I never questioned his talent. He's got more in his pinky than I have my whole body. I've said that multiple times.
Yeah.
2, this is more about playing time.
Okay.
Right. And a clear evolved attitude change that needed to happen. So it
I thought you were more on the health. Like he wasn't going to be healthy enough, not get enough minutes to play in the end, right? That's
ultimately what I thought was going to happen. And in some ways, it's still happening. Yeah, nobody's happy with the lack of playing time he's even getting at Borussia Mönchengladbach. So I was frankly surprised that he got a start because of the messaging that Mauricio Pochettino has had about
look at the numbers. That is crazy.
Yeah, we look at his numbers. If you're not seeing this on the YouTubes, we got since 2022 World Cup, Gio has played 59 times for his club, had 11 starts, 7 goals, 4 assists. For his country, 17 appearances, 15 starts, 5 goals, 4 assists. So he clearly levels up when he wears the red, white, and blue, and he demonstrated that against Paraguay. Also, there's another thing I want to add to this. I have no problem admitting that I was wrong, right? I've got no issue with that. It's not like I told you so kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, but problem. You're not wrong. You're not wrong yet, though, right? If you're going to hold
true.
on. like this is something that you said because, in my opinion, you thought he's not going to be getting enough minutes because of whether it's health, most likely health, but just the inconsistency on the pitch, in and out, whatever. So you still could be right. But if you're watching how he performed in this game, he looks like a new person in terms of how he approached the match, how he worked. Just he looked fluid. It didn't look like he hadn't played. He's only played 59 times for his club, right? Since that 2022 World Cup. So he's clearly a gifted player.
Oh, no question.
That we don't have any like for like in his position. We just don't have another player like him. So I'm hoping, because we've seen it in the past where we've used the national team, coaches have, to get players going, whether it's their form, their lack of minutes to get their sharpness up. We've seen it with Josie multiple times. We've seen it at times with, I want to say there were times where Clint wasn't getting consistent minutes at Fulham or Tottenham. But then all of a sudden it gives them that spark. They go back and then they kill it. So this is something that we need to continue to see from Gio, no doubt.
Well, okay, using that then as a segue into a quote from Tim Ream, who said this after the game: if Gio can get a run of games, sky's the limit for him. And I found that to be the question, like the big if there at the beginning of that. But obviously everybody was thrilled for him, and I think there's another quote here in this Athletic article from Harry Bushnell wrote this, but he had some good ones here from Tim Ream. He put his arm around him. Tim Ream put his arm around Gio at the end of the game and said how important it was for him to be back here, and told him how important it was for him to be back within the team and to feel good about being here. And I love that last part from Tim Ream, who's being a proper leader here and a proper captain. Just soak in how it feels good to be here and be back with this group and to feel the positivity, right? Obviously, what a start to the game too, scoring very early on and just building that confidence, and then having an assist later, or uncredited assist to Flo Balogun, but obviously some good movement to put himself in a good spot. So yeah, I listen, I want the guy to make the team, of course. He to your point, Chuck, he has these qualities that the majority of our player pool doesn't have, and he can see things consistently that others can maybe see every once in a while, right? So you put that player on. The question marks are still playing time because Chuck, let's say he's not playing with Borussia Mönchengladbach coming into the March window. Yeah. You and I were discussing this before the show started. Do you call him in? I was like, yeah, at this point you got to call him in. I'm assuming he's going to put together a good performance against Uruguay. I don't know how many minutes he's going to get, or if he starts again, it'd be great to see that. But that becomes a little bit of a difficult situation, I would say, as a coach. However, he is a special situation, as Mr. Pochettino has called him.
He is special. I mean, when he's playing and he's in form, he's special. I think it's important to note that, one, when he has his edge, like that confidence, he's capable of pulling off these incredible passes, the touches. He can dribble players, create his own shot. We saw him score his first header with the national team. It's a joy to watch. He's a baller. Again, he just needs to focus on his health. That's what I've been saying this entire time, is just his health, so he can continue to grow and fulfill his potential in the end. Mm-hmm. Mönchengladbach, it was an interesting move, but I think it's a move where he wanted to stay in the Bundesliga, and if he's healthy, he will play there. He needs a run of games. He needs consistency, and health has been his biggest issue to this date at Mönchengladbach since he's made that move. So in saying that, I do think he's going to get the playing time, and now it's just the maintenance, right? That maintenance part. I'd love to hear what he thinks in terms of that maintenance part. Does he have to do extra? Can he go back to a normal routine that most players have, or does he have to put in extra maintenance in terms of, working on his hamstrings or his lower back, or, whatever that may be?
Yeah. One thing I want to add too, and I sat with this a little bit before the show started, where, okay, let's say he's done well enough. Obviously, he's proven that he when healthy, he should be in our team, whether he's getting minutes or not, right? He just proved that this last game. Okay, the big conversation, and argument, let's say, in favor of that. No problem. But let's say he's not going to be a starter. That happened in the 2022 World Cup, where Greg Berhalter elected to not make him maybe as of a focal point as he expected going into that. And then the way that I've phrased this and framed this part of the conversation, because the coaching's just different, right? Because Greg Berhalter was a family friend. He's known Gio since he was a kid. And when you're coaching people that you're close to in that way, it's just different, including the player and the coach. Mauricio Pochettino is going to be able to set up some parameters that I believe will allow him to thrive in whatever role that he wants. And also he's grown over the last 4 years as well. And he's going to hopefully have learned from that. And he's already demonstrated or said as much and admitted as much in some recent interviews. So I wanted to entertain that. Like, is he going to be a problem if he's not starting? But I actually don't think that he will. And so I'm hopeful that he can just get the minutes. To your point, Chuck, stay healthy, and then obviously be a big shining star for us in the World Cup. Despite what I said, it's still a possibility. And again, this isn't about me being right or dunking on the haters or the people dunked on me saying, "Oh, you don't know what the hell you're talking about," blah blah blah. It's fine. You can say that, of course, but it was more about playing time. When you look at it from a coaching perspective, if someone's not playing regularly, it's just hard to justify. And Chuck, you and I played on teams too, where you've made special situations for certain players. Sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. And I'm hopeful this one will work out, of course. And long may it continue him playing at a very high level. So go ahead.
Yeah, you go ahead.
No, I was just going to bring up, because there was a comment during our watch along about likening Gio Reyna to James Rodriguez, who maybe didn't always kill it for his club, but always was on for his national team. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was a pretty good comparison. Yes, they're not playing at the same level of club, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, amongst others for James Rodriguez. But just in like when he put on the national team shirt, James, the guy's just a different beast. And so maybe Gio Reyna's our James Rodriguez. That's all. Just putting it out there.
I mean, when you think about guys who have played better with their national team than their club team, it's typically not because of injuries. Like I look at, I remember Eduardo Vargas for Chile. I remember watching him play for QPR, and I'm like, that's not the same guy that plays for Chile and is a star, right? I look at Asamoah Gyan. Every time he played for Ghana, he was a killer. He was a killer.
Killed us.
Shaqiri, even though he played at the biggest clubs, Liverpool, Bayern, he wasn't a starter at these clubs. But when he put on the jersey for Switzerland, next thing you know, he was
great example. I like that one.
Which I think we all saw. Wow, this guy's got a lot of talent, which allowed him to get those moves to big clubs, but he never broke in as a starter, no matter which club he went to. So it's a I don't think James Rodriguez was ever injured to this extent where we're seeing Gio Reyna, but in terms of the comparison of him absolutely killing it for Colombia versus the club scene, which even though he's been playing at Real Madrid and some of the biggest clubs, it just hasn't met that expectation.
Yeah. I like the Shaqiri comparison a lot, because he was a spot starter at the club level, but would always show up and score some big goals for his national team. All right, so Morning Footy on the Glosso Network had the opportunity to speak with Max Arfsten this morning, and they asked him, Nico Cantor asked him about the brawl, and let's see what Max Arfsten had to say overall.
The fight that you guys put up figuratively in the game and literally against Paraguayans, like squaring up as a Latino, let me tell you, I'm pretty proud that the men's national team squared up against Paraguayans. That's kind of scary.
Yeah, I would say vibes are good. I mean, we came out with a win against a good opposition. Opposition already qualified for the World Cup, so that's always a good test for us. And like you said, we showed some good things. I think, jokes aside, the fight just kind of showed our togetherness and intensity and, willingness to stand up for one another. And I think this is good energy to have in a competitive, intense, chippy game like that.
All right, that's Max Arfsten and Nico Cantor from Morning Footy. Now, Mauricio Pochettino said this about the brawl. He said, it's a very dangerous situation. I think we need to pay attention because anything can happen. I don't like these types of situations. I don't know how it started, but I cannot say anything because I'm going to watch on TV and get a better idea of why it started. So I loved it. I'll just start there, Chuck. I like when we get spirited. Now, of course, it was pretty petty. It's always about it's frustration that boils over in these little moments, right? It's just about a throw-in. It should be our throw-in. Freeman's trying to grab the ball from I can't remember which player on Paraguay, and then it all pops off from there. And then somebody, their normal captain, Omar Alderete, he comes in and like swings, and then he gets ejected. I don't know if he'll get to play against Mexico, which is a bit of a shame from their perspective as they try to prepare. But it's just funny where it starts. But I love when games are chippy. I feel like it brings a different version of you out, and you need to be ready to compete. And as we discussed before, how instantaneous we were to really back up Freeman, and that is really what we're most excited about. However, to Mauricio Pochettino's point, Chuck, these little skirmish can turn into a red card very quickly, and all of a sudden you might be down to 10 players in a World Cup game, and that's
but that didn't happen for the US.
It didn't happen here, but it's a real thin line, and we've seen it.
But we've seen it with Serginho Dest at the Nations League when he got a red card against Mexico, giving into it. But at the same time, I think we're starting to see this young group grow and mature, and you can push it to the edge without getting that red card or that yellow card that maybe suspends you for the next match because you've got an accumulation. So I think in this setting, it was more important to show that they're together and they're not afraid of anyone and they're not going to be disrespected by anyone, more so than, hey guys, let's just be docile and kind of bow down to Paraguay. So hell yeah, I'm all about this.
Same. I loved it. Well, we're gonna have a big test in our next game against Uruguay, who also aren't afraid to dabble in the dark arts, as we should say. All right, we're gonna take our first break. A call it when you want. When we come back, we'll get into the Uruguay game. We'll preview what we should be looking out for from Marcelo Bielsa and what we should look out from Mauricio Pochettino and his team as well. So don't go anywhere.
This is European soccer's biggest stage.
Written in the stars! What a difference she has made!
The question is, can you handle it?
Can you handle it?
The crowd here feels electric. Stream every match of the UEFA Women's Champions League on Paramount+.
All right, welcome back in to Call It What You Want. I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside Charlie Davies, and it's time for a little preview, Chuck, for Uruguay. That game's going to kick off 7 p.m. Eastern in Tampa, Florida at Raymond James Stadium. Now, as a reminder, this is a rematch of the game that eliminated the U.S. from the 2024 Copa America on home soil. The U.S. lost 1-0 at Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City on July 1st of 2024.
Jim,
yes?
I got a question for you.
Yes, I like questions.
Because you were center back, right? And
I was.
You were on the older side when you were when you matured. Like, I think it took you a while to get to your highest point, and at the highest point, you'd say it's later in your career versus earlier in your career.
28,
right?
29. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we've seen a lot of the comments, whether it be during the watch along, during this conversation now, about Tim Ream, and man, he's getting older. He's not getting any younger, and he's been exposed. He's been exposed here and there. There hasn't been a number of times where you're going, all right, enough is enough. He's so gifted compared to center backs that you've played with and alike with the ball. You've seen them, find players in the pockets, exposing teams on the ball. But in terms of defensive standpoint and positioning, where is Tim Ream for you? Is this someone is he a lockdown starter for you now? Or is this you're going to wait till come May to kind of start to say, okay, he's our guy? Like, where are you on that?
That's a great question. I would say he's a lockdown starter.
He's a lockdown starter.
I do.
Okay.
I say that, I guess at some point, assuming that someone was going to push him out of the position, but he's in there and he's steady and he's a leader. You need leaders in the spine of your team. And if he's got anything over the other players by a lot, it's that experience, that emotional steadiness. I never got to play with him, so I can't speak to kind of that decision making or that communication.
But you've seen his decision making.
Of course. But it's like, so I played with Eddie Pope. Eddie Pope's one of my favorite defenders that the U.S. has ever produced, and I studied him when I was a younger player, and then when I got to play with him, I just knew how he was going to move in every situation. So I always thought we were a good partnership. Eddie didn't say much, but when he spoke, you listened because he was giving you communication that mattered in that particular moment. And I feel like Tim Ream falls into that a little bit. And I love the quotes that he's been saying recently and obviously being trusted by Mauricio Pochettino, a former center back himself. I believe that Tim Ream's positioning is incredible. Yes, there are a few times where he gets caught out of position, but it's pretty rare. When I think about the balance of a 90-minute game against Paraguay in particular, maybe once was he
but freeze.
Once that led
it's Paraguay.
Fair.
That's not an attacking team. That's not a team that threatens too much or scores a lot of goals, right?
Okay, that's fair.
So now let's flip it and say we're playing a France, or we're playing a Brazil, or we're playing in Argentina. Do you still feel that same way? And by the way, I also think his strengths are much stronger than anyone else in this pool.
Okay.
Which is his lack of athleticism at this age in terms of his speed and quickness. He makes up for in every other facet. So I'm with you in that, just so we're clear.
Okay, no, I didn't feel otherwise. But yes, he's got a high IQ, right? He understands the game. He understands the rhythm of a game. And when we play in this formation in particular, if we have three center backs, I think he's got even more protection. Because that one ball that got in behind him, Miles Robinson was there. Not to say he wouldn't have been there if we had played a back four, but it just feels a little bit more of a safety net. And if we do want to drop into a back four or back five, it's just even more protection to maybe offset his lack of athleticism at this particular time in his career. But the dude's super smart. And let's be honest, anytime we were trying to play out of the back against Paraguay, who sat in a low block, so this will be important too, because we will run into one or two of these opponents in the World Cup. Yeah, Miles Robinson was always playing the ball back to Tim Ream, and Tim Ream was the one that was kind of making that next pass that was breaking the lines. So unless there's a specific opponent where maybe they're playing a lot of long balls and we need maybe a little bit more height or a little bit more athleticism, then you could elect to go with somebody else. But at this particular moment, I don't know how you couldn't make him a lockdown starter. Where are you on this?
I think he's a lockdown starter, just based on his experience and his ball distribution skills, his positioning. So there's a lot of conversation. Should he be in that left center back spot, right in a back three? Because he lacks the pace. If Anthony Robinson or Max Arfsten or Timothy Weah, whoever is playing in that left wing back spot come next June, is out of position, and now he's forced to get out wide, oh man, we're in trouble. If you're talking about some of the speediest players in world football, right, in that right wing spot. But I think he's smart enough to either get people dropped or cut out that pass and have some cover. He also have a middle center back and a right center back to cover behind him if he ever has to venture out there.
Or take a risk, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I think given everything else that he has, which I think he has an abundance in over everyone else that he's challenging for in that spot, he's a lockdown starter for me at this point. And to be honest, he's still in the conversation. Like, he's still playing. He didn't retire from the national team because I think he himself knows I'm still the best in this position. So I'm going to play in another World Cup on home soil. Why wouldn't I at this stage?
I think another intangible, just very quickly on Tim Ream before we get into our projected starting 11 against Uruguay, is not getting overwhelmed. I remember there was a game I played against Denmark with the U.S. Were you there for that camp, Chuck? I don't know if you were there or not.
Was this when Jeff Cunningham was playing?
Yes, so you weren't there, or
this was literally the first game
after
in that friendly after my accident. Yeah.
That's right. And so
I watched it from Delaware when I was rehabbing with Hosh. So I remember it.
Hosh, give a shout out to Jim Hashimoto. Yeah. So in that game, I came on as a sub in that game. Came on. We had given up 3 goals in a pretty quick succession, and I came on after that. But I remember Rico Clark, and he's like, I'm just chasing shot. Like, I don't know, what had happened during the game, because I could see it on the bench, was that our lines were getting collapsed. Denmark had done such a nice job of kind of overloading and taking advantage of certain situations on the field that our midfield had kind of fallen on top of our back line. And so Ricardo Clark was chasing guys into spaces that our center back should have managed. At that point, we just had gotten overwhelmed. And it happens in games, even with the top players in the world and the biggest teams. So when I came on, I just said, Rico, you have to stay. We have to keep our spacing the same. You can't just let your runner come into my area and I'll manage it. Because if we're standing right next to each other, if we win the ball, who the hell am I going to play it to? We got nowhere to transition and play out of. So where I think Tim Ream, I use that example because I think Tim Ream is very good at that, making sure that everybody's spacing is right, including his own. So not only is his positioning good, I think he does a nice job of positioning others around him. And I feel like if you have a younger player who maybe doesn't have those reps of playing at a high level over an extended period of time, when shit gets bad on the field, you could just get overwhelmed and you start worrying about what you're doing and not necessarily managing everybody else. And so I think that age and experience comes into handy. All right, let's take a look at our projected 11 because I want to get Chuck's thoughts on this. We only made one change to it. This time we're not having any back four nonsense to trigger Chuck this time. Mm-hmm. But the only change we made, we had McKenzie coming in on the right side for Joe Scally. That was really the big change. Or Luna comes in too. Excuse me. Luna's in as well.
Right here for me is as much as we've wanted to see Mark McKenzie, I think Alex Freeman is ahead of him in that right center back spot. What do you think at this stage?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing Freeman. Clearly he trusted him there.
But would you rather have McKenzie there as a natural center back who plays in a back three, although he mostly plays on the left side of a back three, but either way, playing as a natural center back in a back three versus a right wing back playing in that right center back role?
I feel like when Freeman came on, there was a noticeable change in how we were defending that particular area. I thought Paraguay was trying to find that gap between Scally and Dest. Mm-hmm. They probably did some scouting and said, hey, Dest is going to get forward, so let's see if we can find that pocket. And that's ultimately the pocket where they ended up getting the goal. But I would like to see McKenzie and I'd like to see Trust. If you're going to bring Trusty in, I don't know how he's training, but it would be nice to see him get some minutes against a very good opponent in Uruguay.
If he doesn't play at all, is that a sign for you that he's
Trusty would be out for sure.
Yeah,
I think at that point, 100%. But I do think, and you brought this up during the watch along, I thought it was super smart. He's being trusted to get Freeman. Alex Freeman's being trusted again as like a right center back in the back three, and I mean that. Because we saw Scally getting forward, if there's some freedom there from that position in general, because we saw it with Freeman before of getting forward, then that's an interesting kind of take. And that allows Arfsten would have to come, or whoever the left wing back would be, have to come tuck in, or one of the holding midfielders would have to come in. But that just gives you a luxury of options. If you let's say in a world where you had Freeman and Dest out wide trying to combine to create numerical advantages in the wide channel, that's pretty sick. I mean, there's something there, but obviously everybody else and the rotations of everybody else has to make sense too. So there is something about that I like. I should read out this lineup though really quick. It's Matt Freese in goal, Tim Ream, Robinson, and McKenzie was that back three. This is a projected 11. Roldan and Tessman would be the sixes again. Arfsten and Dest would be the wing backs. Luna and Reyna. So Luna would come in for Aronson and then Balogun up top. I wonder if he's going to make more changes than this though, Chuck. This feels like not enough changes for. But again, maybe we're not experimenting anymore.
But that's how Pochettino has kind of operated. He makes minimal changes. So maximum 3 changes, maximum. I wouldn't be surprised.
One in each line of the field.
If it's just 2, but I'd say maximum 3 changes is what we're going to see.
Okay. So goalkeeper stays the same, Freeze.
Yep. Scally's out. I think Scally's out. Same back three.
Now it's just a matter who comes in for Scally. It's either McKenzie or Freeman.
Yep. And then I think Dest stays. I think Tessman stays. Roldan could change.
You got a Buralt or Aiden Morris for
and then
for
Arfsten stays. Then Reyna, I would assume stays. You're not taking him off now. You want to see how he picks it up for the second game.
You like the Luna over Aronson?
Yeah.
Yep.
And then Balogun up top.
Yep. Though I feel like Pepe will probably get a little bit more minutes than the 15 he got. Well, we'll see. Yeah,
but remember, Balogun isn't getting back for any club game. He's suspended.
That's right. He is suspended. Yeah. All right. Let's do some. Yeah. Let's talk about Uruguay a little bit. Coming off a 0-0 draw against Mexico, which the highlight was they had That was a pretty chippy game as well, which is not a big surprise. 19 fouls for each team. Not too many chances for Uruguay, and in fact, they've struggled to score quite a bit. They're unbeaten in their last 6, but 4 of those wins were against Venezuela, Peru, Dominican Republic, and Uzbekistan. Not necessarily world beaters in that one. But what I think is really interesting is the relationship between Marcelo Bielsa and Mauricio Pochettino, because he has been around. Bielsa saw him as a young player, signed him at 14 for Newell's Old Boys. Of Mauricio Pochettino's 20 caps, all 20 of them came under Marcelo Bielsa when he was coaching Argentina. He coached him at Espanyol. Like, there's a long history between these two, and it's gonna be exciting to see them face off against each other. And he's clearly taken a lot from Bielsa, but I wonder how if this changes at all, because they've faced each other at the club level when Pochettino was coaching Espanyol and Bielsa was coaching Athletic Bilbao. And actually, the Padawan has beaten the Jedi, or at least there's 2 draws and a win there in favor of Pochettino. But Bielsa has actually never beaten his young apprentice. So this should be a good game. And Uruguay is having trouble scoring goals right now. Darwin Nunez is not in the team. Federico Valverde is not in the team. Both due to injury, so they're missing out on some of their key catalysts, I would say, when they transition from defense to attack. But obviously going to be very difficult to break down, Chuck.
Yeah, it's another fantastic test. I think they still have better quality going forward than Paraguay, but in terms of defensive structure, priorities, mentality, they have all of that. So another phenomenal test in this window.
Yeah, I think what's interesting too is that Uruguay is ranked 15th by the FIFA rankings. We're 16th, but apparently in the more reputable ELO ratings, Uruguay is now 12th in the world, while the U.S. is 39th. Unacceptable, ELO. show us some love. But
you love yourself some ELO.
I love myself some ELO ratings. Now, given the fact that Uruguay is, I guess I kind of want to know what you think our approach is going to be, let's say in the first 15, 20 minutes of this game, Chuck. I assume we're just going to go front foot and pressure them, but so is Uruguay, whereas Paraguay dropped off. And so I wonder how that's going to impact kind of the flow or rhythm that we're trying to establish.
Just have balance. You just have balance. Yeah, you're gonna attack, you're gonna keep possession, they're gonna attack, they're gonna keep possession, and then it's just making the most of those numerical advantages in transition. I think set pieces can still be better for us, and could be a big part of this game as well. So yeah, I like the idea of this game that we're going to be under it too. We're not going to be expected to keep possession and break down Uruguay the entire game. So it's a little bit of both. So I think this is going to be a good. We'll get a good sense of where this team is, given the strength of the opponent.
Okay, and then what's your prediction? How do you think this game is going to play out? You went 1-1 last time, but then you changed it. Did you? We let you change it before the game during the watch along.
Yeah, and then I went 2-0 when I changed.
Yeah, you weren't too far off. You got the win. You switched from a draw to a win, so I'll give you credit for that.
I felt it, so I felt the win.
I said 1-0, so I had the 1 goal advantage to us. Correct.
Now the question
so
is,
Big Tones nailed it, and fair to Big Tones, he said 2-1.
Yes, he did nail it. I'm gonna go with, I think they win this game.
He's struggling, everybody. He's struggling to find the words.
I'm struggling between 2-1 or 1-0. That's what I'm struggling with.
Okay.
I'm gonna go 1-0.
You say 1-0?
Yeah.
All right, we're seeing some shouts. 1-0, Gio Reyna gets the winner. I would love that. Inject that straight into my veins. Got 2-2. That's quite a few goals, I'd say, from a Uruguayan team that's been struggling to score. Of course, I did the same thing about Paraguay, who didn't score very much during qualifying.
And concede.
Right. And Czar's got 3-0 US. I would love that even more. But I'm going to say 1-1. I think this game's going to be real tight. I'm with Labs there. I got 1-1. Ace of Spades, I say 1-1. It feels like it's got 1-1. This is a revenge match for us. Obviously, they knocked us out of the Copa America in a must-win game, and we couldn't get the job done, unfortunately. I actually didn't mind our performance in that game. I remember there was a set. Didn't we have a free kick where we thought we scored? And and they ended up calling it back due to offside. And that, I didn't think there were like levels between us. I thought that game was pretty even, and they made the one play that ultimately made the difference, and we got knocked out. But that was the last game of Greg Berhalter's tenure, his last ever game managing the U.S. If we look back at those stats, 50% possession, and that one, 12 shots for Uruguay, 8 for us, 3 on target for us, 5 for them. And yeah, I mean, those are the fine margins. And hopefully, as we talked about game management, as we talked about reviewing, the mental, emotional, and tactical side of things at the start of the show, how do we manage the game? How do we make sure the fine margins are tilting towards us? And I think that's a part of the evolution of this team as well. All right, we're going to take our last break. I call it what you want. When we come back, we're going to talk about some of our co-hosts and how they're performing lately, just to get a temperature of what's happening with Mexico and Canada. So keep it right here.
The clock never stops. Relive the greatest moments with uninterrupted highlights and more.
It's Gareth Bale. Ronaldo! Wonderful goal.
On the UEFA Champions League channel. Streaming free.
Welcome back in to Call It What You Want. I'm Conrad Dino alongside Chuck, Chase, and Chuck. And let's talk about our hosts, our co-hosts, I should say. Let's get a little vibe check, temperature check. Mexico coming off a 0-0 draw versus Uruguay. Now, if you look back at their last 5 games, Chuck, after they beat us in the Gold Cup final, they have 0 wins. But they have 4 draws. They drew with Japan. They drew with South Korea. They ended up losing 4-0 to Colombia. So that was the only blemish, I would say. But they haven't scored recently either. And so now there was a quote here after the game from Raul Jiménez, who said this to when he was on TV talking to Azteca Deportes. It's sad to play at home. This is Raul Jiménez saying this about his own fans. It's sad to play at home and get booed, to hear people shout Vasco out or yell expletives at the goalkeeper. That's what's really sad. Maybe that's why they always take us to the United States. Yikes. So it's I guess it's not isolated to just us. If we're not playing well, people want people fired, but I guess we're seeing that in general across the world and in all sports. That instant gratification of we need to win, and we need to win now every single time we step on the field. And it's not to say the players aren't trying, but I think there's an element of aesthetics. Like, we want to win, and we want to win in a way that we're proud of how we're playing. And I use Mexico as an example here, but I think that's where maybe some of the frustration comes from fans of El Tri.
Yeah, I think it's tough because it's a new generation, but we were so accustomed to seeing Mexico dominate possession. They were such a strong team. When they kept the ball, they had you chasing and running throughout most of the game. And then we talk about the home factor of playing in Azteca with the heat and the altitude. They would just tire you out, and then the goals would start coming.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have that fear factor anymore.
Yeah.
So I think that's a part of it. When you watch them play, there's not a real identity, 1, and 2, they just don't have those game changers that we're accustomed to seeing from them. When you talk about whether it's Chicharito and Gio Dos Santos and Carlos Vela and, these generational players, they just don't have those players. Even like a Tecatito. Remember, like, Corona would get on the ball, and when Dazzle and Pete, you'd be like, oh God, who's going to defend this? They just don't have those players anymore. So I feel for Raul Jiménez because he deserves, that whole team deserves support from a nation that when they are behind that team, you feel it. I remember playing in Azteca. You feel it. There's a presence, and I think it's gone, unfortunately.
Yeah, just 4 months ago, they were lifting the Gold Cup. As we mentioned, that was their second trophy in 5 months because they had won the Nations League as well. So it's funny how quickly things can change again. And I feel this way about our team as well. Once the World Cup is here, everybody's going to be behind their team. And so I'm not ultimately too worried about it, whether it's for us or Mexico or Canada. But yeah, obviously you want to be in a position to be playing as well as you possibly can for as long as you possibly can. And let's be honest, fans of any team, I mean, do you really want to peak 7 months before the World Cup starts? No, baby, you want to peak 7 months from now. That's what you're working towards. So obviously every team's got questions.
It's not about peaking, but you want to see positive steps being taken. And that's not happening.
Yeah.
So that's a major flag. If you're gonna make a move, you would make it now, right?
Yes, of course. Yeah, you want to make a move. Yeah. I agree with you on that.
Like they have I think they have enough to say, all right, if this isn't going the way we planned and we're not seeing progress, you got to show me progress.
Right.
Whether it's players coming in, whether it's a style and identity, maybe not so much the results, but when you're watching them play, are we seeing something that gets us excited? And if that's the answer is no, and it's been stale, then maybe this is the time to make that move.
Yeah, just the last 5 results once again for Mexico: 0-0 draw against Japan, 2-2 draw against South Korea, 4-0 loss to Colombia, 1-1 draw against Ecuador, and now a 0-0 draw against Uruguay, which was a little bit more about kicking each other than it was about playing.
Yeah, but all 5, but all 5 opponents are top opponents, right? So
World Cup opponents. Yeah,
and they only have 1 loss of those. So if we're talking solely results, that's not that bad. You had 1 bad game against Colombia, and Colombia is top. So, it's not the end of the world. But if you're telling me the actual performances were trash, then that's a whole nother thing.
So here's the headline: Charlie Davies thinks that Mexico is going to draw their way to the World Cup trophy. All right, let's talk about Canada, our neighbors to the north here. When we take a look at their recent results, they had 2 very, very good ones not too long ago in Europe. They went to Romania and won that one 3-0. Really impressive. They went on European soil. Then went to Wales and backed it up with a 1-0 win. And then came home and have played 3 games since. They lost to Australia 1-0. They should not have lost that game. They created so many chances. And so I think there's still, for Jesse Marsch and the team, they could still feel pretty encouraged that they did enough. They just weren't hitting the back of the net. The Colombia game, a 0-0 draw. Can't remember Colombia or Ecuador. They got a early red card. Ahmed got a red card, and they had to be down a man for 84 minutes. I believe it's the Ecuador game. And so that one I kind of just threw out the window. They still had a good chance. Tani Oluwase had an unbelievable chance. It was a really good save there. And I actually think they still had a better XG being down a man for 84 minutes than Ecuador did. So there's still something to be positive. But there's a lot of heat on Jesse right now that they're not finishing their chances. And obviously Jonathan David, who's their star, hasn't scored for club or country in a while. His only goal for Juventus was the first game of the season for Juve, and now he doesn't even start for them. Vlahovic is back in as the number 9. So they've got their own issues up north in the red and white of Canada.
It's tough if Jonathan David isn't having the success that he had for club football, so his confidence is low. He's not getting the reps, the match sharpness, and now he comes to Canada where they need him to be that star. You could see that something's got to change, and I hope for Jesse he figures it out.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's going to figure it out. I'm sure, and one of the things that I know that Jesse's been talking about in press conferences is just how good they've been defensively. In these 5 games, they've only given up 5 shots on goal. And as a reminder, Alphonso Davies is still out with a knee injury, so at some point they're going to be even more dynamic when he comes in. And when you think about Alphonso Davies on the left, and then Tejan Buchanan setting up on the right and cutting in,
I think he's close. He's close to getting back, like in the conversation. Like for March, he'll be ready to go.
He'll be flying. Yeah, he's gonna have a nice run up into the World Cup. So that just adds another layer, I think, for Canada, and we know Jesse's gonna have the team fired up and ready to go. But I actually have been really impressed with their defensive organization. Only giving up 5 shots on goal against those 5 opponents is really impressive. But you still got to bring, as we mentioned before, our favorite coaching phrase here, we got to bring attacks to completion. They got to get more out of what they're doing when they're going forward. And that seems to be a problem around the world for all the national teams and maybe even some of the top clubs as well. You can get into good spots, but what can you do once you get there is not an easy thing to unlock at times. So overall, Chuck, it seems like I feel like we've got the most wind at our back right now. If we talk about all the co-hosts, the U.S. is feeling like we're okay. All right, we're good. Our identity is starting to be more sharp.
Oh yeah.
I'm feeling good.
In terms of Mexico and Canada, I'm feeling good. I'm going USA. But I'm excited. Actually, tomorrow I'm in studio, so I'm actually missing you guys for the watch along against Uruguay, because it's the last day of World Cup qualifying for the rest of North America. So I'm excited to be in studio and see who else is going to join the party.
Yeah, no, it should be a lot of fun. That's gonna be the Golasso show. And who's competing tomorrow? Who are you covering directly? Like, who's the biggest matchup?
Well, tomorrow you got Jamaica, Curacao, which has something on it. Costa Rica, Honduras. Costa Rica has to win.
Costa Rica, by the way, Alonso Martinez, the top player, plays for NYCFC, having an unbelievable year for club and country, tore his ACL, and so he missed the World Cup even if the Ticos get in, which is like absolutely heartbreaking. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Terrible. But the game with Costa Rica, they're playing Honduras and they need to win. Haiti has 8 points at the tied with Honduras, but in second place. They played Nicaragua last place. Now, if Haiti wins and Honduras draws or loses, Haiti wins the group and will be going to the World Cup.
That's amazing. What a story that would be.
What a story. And then Jamaica, of all teams, you would think they'd cruise through, but here it is that Curacao could end up taking that World Cup spot. And then Panama and Suriname are tied at the top spot in Group A. So,
man,
yeah, can Guatemala pull something and win at home against Suriname? That'll be interesting.
We're going to miss you tomorrow for the watch along, but man, tune into the Golasso show. All matches are going to be on Paramount Plus to catch some of these. Curacao only needs a win or a draw to get in. I mean, that is wild. The Reggae Boys got a lot of work.
A lot of work, but Costa Rica too. Honduras is not just going to.
Yeah, true.
Hey, go ahead. That's going to be an awesome game. So we'll have Rodney Wallace in studio.
Awesome
for that. So
Love
it'll
Rodney.
be good to work with Rodster.
All right, so let's get into some final thoughts. And before we get there, Chuck, I want to give Ian Fuller some love because he's married to one of our favorites, Susanna Collins. Won Knoxville. He coaches them, general manager for them, and they won the League One title in USL. So congratulations to Ian Fuller. That is a big deal. And it was a bit of a risk for him, I think, to leave. He was at Minnesota United. He's on the coaching staff there.
A massive risk.
And he went, and that, I mean, for him to get validated with this trophy is very cool. And so I'm excited for him. And we got to get him on the show at some point. That's a big deal. And then we have the USL Championship is set. The Pittsburgh Riverhounds are going to Tulsa to take on FC Tulsa. Both teams are in their first ever USL Championship final. Pittsburgh doing what they have to do. 2-0-0 draws, one in penalties in the first two rounds, 1-1-0 in the next round. Tulsa, I thought, looked very good against New Mexico United, scored 3 goals in that one, continue to set records at their home stadium. Hopefully they'll do it again for the final, and that will be on Paramount Plus, and I'm looking forward to that game as well. I don't know if you have a favorite in that, and big CBS, I should say. I got FC Tulsa going through ultimately, but I don't want to sleep on the Riverhounds, who, haven't scored very many, but they haven't given up any goals.
I'm not sleeping on the Riverhounds.
Like, you can't sleep on them at this point. But FC Tulsa at home, given the season that they've had, I'm going to probably lean to them, and it'll be a tight one. But that game will be on big CBS, and that is a very big deal for the USL Championship. So make sure you tune in for that game. All right, any final thoughts, Chuck? We've had a lot to discuss today.
Yeah.
But anything jump out at you that you want to get into? Because let's say this. This could be a good way to finish the show. So I got into, listen, I haven't done this in a while, but I got into a little bit of a Twitter beef with someone about the U17s, because we got knocked out by Morocco, okay, and in the U17 World Cup, and I had, all I did was respond to the U.S. Youth National Team account saying, hey, it's a cruel sport. We had our chances to win that one. It didn't work out, and we have a lot to be proud of. Now, we do have a lot to be proud of. We won all 3 games in the group stage for the first time in U17 history for us. We were up 1-0 on Morocco, and Matisse Albert ended up missing a penalty to put it at 2-0, and we give up a late goal, and we lose in penalties, right? So the fine margins didn't go our way. But I thought it's clear that this group of players, super talented, right? And the future just feels really bright. And so I just didn't feel like it felt good to dunk on those guys for what should be looked at as a very positive experience for this age group. And man, people are like, we shouldn't be proud of mediocrity. We shouldn't be proud of, what are you telling these guys you're proud of? And I have not gotten into a Twitter beef in some time, Chuck, but I don't understand why we can't throw positivity out there about, especially these are kids.
Yeah,
man. These are kids.
But you know
These
how
are
it
kids.
goes. You can't.
I do know how it goes.
You coach youth soccer in this country. You've seen how social media has changed the way that people respond in terms of, you know, post match, even, you know, decisions
kids,
around.
That's one thing, they're professional.
I know
the full team.
People are even that much more crazy around kids. You've been around the youth soccer tournaments and fields. Are you kidding me? We have referees, kid referees, who are on the pitch trying to do their best because they're there because no one else would be reffing, right? They're volunteering their time. And there are some who are kind of out to lunch and not really paying attention, right? But there are some who are actually trying, who love the game and want to help. And there are parents who are absolutely tearing down these kids who are trying their best. You got to know they're not going to make the best decisions at times. It's not going to be perfect. But you hope that most of the calls they get right. Unfortunately, that's how toxic it is. And you can't let it bother you. Yeah, like, you know what I mean? Like, you've been around for too long to let comments like that bother you. Stand by what you said. Cabin Sullivan was another player that stood out for me in this tournament. He showed, hey, he's got some quality. He taunted a little bit and he got it back. Like, that's part of the game. You learn, you grow. I think Jude Terry is also another player who stood out. And Matisse, he missed the penalty, but the kids,
a player though.
What a player, right? He's got tons of potential. Focus on that. Of course, I look at some of the U20 World Cups in the past when Tab was the head coach, and there was quality, and you felt, man, sometimes it's just unlucky, and they got the team that wins the World Cup, right? So unfortunately, in some of these World Cups, it's all about the draw. I look back at my Olympics. We drew Nigeria, who ended up getting a silver medal, Japan and the Netherlands, top teams, and we ultimately should have advanced, but we got a red card and things happen. So just stay positive, Jim. Come on.
I am staying positive. I'm trying to fight.
Yeah,
the
but
fight
I know, but I can see it's weighing on you. It's weighing
on me because these are kids, right? We have young coaches that are doing their best, and it's not like they didn't perform, but we didn't crash out in the group stages. We beat a good Burkina Faso team. We came from behind, right? That showed some maturity there against Tajikistan, and then we beat a good Czechia team, right? So we find ourselves against Morocco. Can we talk about Morocco though? Over the last 1.5 years, they beat us in the Olympics, they beat us in the U20 World Cup, and they just beat us in the U17 World Cup. So if I'm going to make any claims about this next summer's World Cup, can we just not play Morocco? I don't care.
No, I'm saying let's play Morocco.
Hopefully he's back because he's a.
No, I'm saying let's play him.
I don't know, man. I don't know if I want to play Morocco.
No, let's play him.
Maybe.
Let's play him.
I don't know. It's potentially the new Ghana for us, and that's the last thing we want.
I'm telling you right now, if we want to be the footballing nation we want to be, you got to beat Morocco. So I'm sorry. So let's play Morocco. It's World Cup.
Hey, be careful what you wish for, Chuck. We can beat the Frances and Spains and Englands. Let's beat those guys. Let's leave Morocco out of it. They got our number right now, Chuck.
I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that.
All right.
We got to beat those. We got to beat those nations.
Okay, fine. Bring on Morocco. Bring on everybody. Who cares? All right, that's it. We're calling it a show. Thank you for hanging out with us as always. We'll be back with you tomorrow here on the Gloss America YouTube channel. We're doing a live watch along without Charlie Davies. Guess who's coming in for you, Chuck? Jonathan Bornstein. That's when the show goes. Call it what it is, baby. Johnny B coming in to hang out. Call it what it is. We're changing the name of the show. Okay, that watch along will start at 6:45 p.m. Eastern. We'll get into the starting 11s, and the game will kick off about 20 minutes later. And then obviously we'll watch the game, do a post-game show, and it's always a whole bunch of fun. So come back.
Hey, for those of you who don't know, Johnny B shut down Messi for 45 minutes, baby.
Just 45?
Copa America. Remember?
I was there. I was right next to him. Next to him. I saw it firsthand. All right, that's it. See you guys tomorrow. Take it easy. Thanks for hanging out with us. Later.